Hi everyone, this is Walt Bayliss. I'm the host of the Business and People podcast. Today, I am in star shock as I'm talking to the Brad Pitt of the track, a two-time Olympic champion and now CEO of Run Gum. He's been sponsored by Nike. He's now sponsored by Brooks Running Shoes. He is the man of the hour, and I am thrilled to have on the show with us Mr. Nick Symmonds. Nick, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. A pleasure.
Man, that is a heck of a resume. I am absolutely loving reading your bio. I mean, all the way through college, right up through two Olympics with Beijing and London. Man, that's been an amazing journey for you.
It was. The average length of a pro runner's career might only be 2, maybe 3 years. I ran professionally for 12 years. So I had great team behind me. I was fortunate to be blessed with durability, and I just loved it. I genuinely enjoyed my job. And I always said I was going to do this until the wheels fell off. And about my mid-30s, early to mid-30s, things started kind of falling apart. And
right.
I was injured more than I was healthy. And that's when you kind of lose the passion, the fun of it. And so I decided to retire in 2017 at the age of 33.
With some amazing medals and stats behind you, mate. I mean, I was just reading about the silver in Moscow where you dedicated the medal to gay and lesbian friends. I noticed about, so many Olympic accolades, personal bests. I mean, to retire in your mid-30s with that kind of resume behind you, dude, that's like to pin up on the wall. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a good career. I look back on it and I made a lot of sacrifices, made a lot of good decisions, some bad decisions. But overall, I think I handled it well. A short, stocky kid from Idaho goes on to make 2 Olympic teams and win a world silver medal. I think if you had met me when I was a kid, you never would have pegged me for the kind of guy with the grit that it takes to get that far. But I just, like I said, I love the sport, and I learned to work. I learned to appreciate a good day of work. And more than anything, I just felt like I owed it to my younger self to see how far I could take the sport. And along the way, I just had a ton of fun. I really, if I could say I did one thing right, I built a great team, from my coach to my manager to my mentor, my sports psychologist, my massage therapist. When you're doing something big like trying to make an Olympic team, there's a lot of people that want to come along for the ride. And I found the best people possible to be part of my team, and I couldn't have done it without them.
I'm going to dig into 2 things there, mate, because I'm really fascinated by building that team. But I also want to just wind back a little bit where you said the grit to get to those kind of levels. What did it take in terms of a mindset? What was going through your head to be able to set that goal and achieve it?
I think that, everybody finds motivation from different sources. Some of us find it more ego driven. Some of us find it monetarily. Some of us find it, for intrinsic values. And at any given point in my career, I could very easily pinpoint exactly what was the driving force. Okay. When I was in high school, it was just proving people that I could, what I was capable of. I wanted to prove to people that I could be great at something. In college, it was more just because I wanted to, I wanted to prove people wrong. I had doubters, people that said I didn't get to go to a D1 school because I wasn't good enough. I wanted to prove them wrong. And then as I transitioned into a pro, it was proving my old coach wrong, who thought I would never make it as a pro. Wow. It was ego driven. It was monetarily driven. Certainly in the later part of my career was very much monetarily driven. And then towards the latter part, and today it's just all intrinsic and how much I love staying in shape. So, at any given point, there's a lot of different motivators. If I really had to peg it down, what got me through the toughest parts and to the pinnacle of my career, it was ego and money.
Yeah, cool.
And I want to be honest to all the young men and women out there. It's okay to be driven by ego and money. Absolutely. A lot of really great things have happened in this world, to this civilization, by people who are driven by those 2 things.
I completely agree. It's like it's a pulling forward force, isn't it? When you go,
it can be. I'm
going to do it.
You have to channel it, right? You got to harness it for good and not evil. Yeah. And I don't think it makes for the happiest existence. I certainly am happier now that I'm less ego and less money focused. But I'm telling you, as a young man, just proving people wrong, impressing women, and making money was pretty much my reason for being. And like I said, I wasn't necessarily happy having that being my primary purpose, but darn it, it leads to some great performances.
I love it. I love it. And impressing women, you certainly did that well with dating Paris Hilton. I mean, that's a tick in the box as well. So you've ticked a lot of boxes there, mate. So can I just drill into building the team? So you were saying as you were as you were, really achieving that top level of success, you brought the best people around you. A lot of people wanted to come along for the ride, and you crafted that amazing team around you. Did you handpick them, or did they come to you? How did that team come together?
I would say I handpicked my mentor. I call him Coach Sam. He was never my coach in the sense that he was holding the stopwatch or writing workouts necessarily, but he was the guiding force behind my career. And I met him at Willamette University. He was the head strength and conditioning coach. And I recognized that he had been very successful on the track himself. He was very successful in business. He had a beautiful family. I'm like, this guy gets it. And we just formed a bond really quickly. Nice. When I turned pro in 2006, the head coach for Nike, Frank Gagliano, said, what do you need to be successful? I said, make sure Sam's around as much as possible. And so Sam was really, through all the coaching changes, the sponsor changes, through every up and down, he was there for me. And so I would say I handpicked Sam, and then Sam went out and built the team. So he helped me find the coach. He helped me find the sports psychologist, the massage therapist. He was there helping me build out the team, and we together built out the team. But he was really kind of the guiding force there.
That's so cool. That's amazing. And so now you've transitioned into business, and you're the CEO of Run Gum, which is obviously an amazing way of giving energy and a boost, not just to athletes, but anyone in any environment. They just pop a piece of gum in their mouth and they've got caffeine taurine.
There you go. Kind of stuff. Just like an energy drink, but you don't have to refrigerate it. You don't have to have all that calories and sugar sloshed around your stomach. It's just a quicker, cleaner way to get energy.
I love it. How did you go from the track to this as an idea and then grow your team, to be able to produce Run Gum as you have done?
Well, one thing, that I will give Sam and I credit for is that from an early stage, we recognized that the average, like I mentioned, the average age of retirement for most track and field runners is in the mid-20s. And that I was always just one twisted ankle or bum knee away from really, losing out on that source of income. So from very early age, we were going to always try to have an exit strategy. And we were both really interested in entrepreneurial business. And so we were building businesses all along the way. But around the age of 30, I was ranked number 2 in the world. And I had this idea for a caffeinated energy gum. I was getting energy drinks sent to me from a lot of different energy companies. And I love the way they made me feel, but I hated having to drink a big can of liquid before I worked out. I'm like, this is so stupid. I just want the stimulants. I'm not thirsty. Why am I being forced to drink something? Yeah. And I had studied biochemistry at Willamette University, so I knew I could get those stimulants sublingually. And we kind of fooled around with tinctures and thought about dissolving strips, but it was really gum that made the most sense. There's a reason, Nicorette uses chewing gum. Chewing gum, when it tastes good, it's easily portable. It has great shelf life. It's easy to manufacture, and you can deliver these stimulants very quickly that way. So we made this. We found a contract manufacturer that could put it together for us. We packaged it, called it Run Gum, built by a couple of runners, 4 runners. But then 90% of the population uses caffeine. It's the most widely consumed stimulant in the world. Naturally, people running errands or running into the office or just, doing anything active found that this could be a really great product for them. Yeah. And so we launched that in 2014, just have been doubling revenue year over year ever since. We're nationwide in Target, Walmart, CVS, REI, on Amazon. I mean, we're pretty much everywhere now.
What's the turnover now? Give me a brag. Where are you at?
Where are we at in revenue?
Yeah.
But we're a private company, so we can only divulge that to investors.
Okay. No worries. I'm safe to say that with those kind of Target, Walmart, CVS, with those kind of things,
it's bigger than I ever. I'll just say it's bigger than I ever thought it would be. Yeah,
that's super cool, man. And in terms of team now, I guess you've got people that help you produce. You've got distribution. You've got all that kind of stuff going on. You're actually employing so many people as a direct or indirect result of putting this together.
Yeah, and it feels great. I feel like running is a very selfish endeavor. You're just getting, how many resources can I get? How many people can I get to help me get where I want to go? Now to be able to give back to this community, this Eugene Tracktown community that gave me so much, like you said, creating jobs and hopefully fueling and inspire people to make the most of their busy day. It's really rewarding for me to be able to give back to the running community and the community of Eugene, Oregon. That's
awesome, mate. So what did you have to do in terms of knowledge base to move into a business field? What did you have to learn?
I mean, I liken it as taking someone who's never swim and just throwing them off the diving board in the deep end and say like, well, you're either going to get to the edge or you're going to drown.
Right.
I mean, it's the exact same thing. Cause like I said, I had no background in business. I had no experience in CPG and consumer packaged goods, no experience raising money. I mean, literally every single day it's like, well, either I'm going to learn this new skill or we're going to go bankrupt. And that's startup life. And that's been my existence for the last 5 years. And some days it's scary, some days exciting. But for the most part, I really, really enjoy my job.
Do you know, it's funny, Nick, I was talking to someone the other day about, you know, you're stronger than you can possibly believe. And we were actually talking about going on a run. And we were saying, you know, have you ever got to the point on a long run? I know you were middle distance track, but on a long run where you get to that, like, I don't know, 5 miles kind of point, you're like, I have to stop, my head's going to explode. And somehow you manage to get to 10. And that kind of fortitude to be able to say, I can do something that I never imagined that I could. Have you felt that to be a really good foundation for those tough days in business? We're like, I'm either going to go broke today or I'm going to make it. Have you felt that kind of, I can do this because of your background?
Yeah, you know, one of the neatest statistics I ever heard was a physiologist. And, you know, if anyone has run a marathon, you know, you get to the end of that marathon and you're collapsed at the finish line. You think you're just a moment, you know, breaths away from death. And a physiologist once told me, once you've done that, once you've run that marathon, as horrible as you feel, as totally gassed as you feel, you've probably only really exhausted your reserves by about 25%. You probably, if you had to, if your life depended on it, could do that 4 times over.
Wow.
And I heard that, and I'm just like, our bodies are capable of absolutely mind-boggling things. I mean, you just can't even comprehend what the human body is capable of. And that helped fuel me on the track, just pushing my limits and trying to find out what my own personal limits are. And to a certain extent, that mentality helps me in business. When there are days where I'm like, there is no way I'm going to be able to figure out how to do this, I take some comfort in knowing that people have come before me that have figured it out. And I'm not the smartest, you know, sharpest tool in the shed, but people who are dumber than me have figured this out. And I should be able to figure this out with enough persistence and enough humility to ask for help. I should be able to figure just about anything out. Not necessarily saying that I can execute on that, but that's what's so beautiful about the you know, the working machine of a business. Any one piece in the business, you know, if the business was left in their hands, it would go bankrupt, including myself as the CEO of this company. If this business was left in my hands alone, it's going to go straight into the ground. But fortunately, it's not just me. It's a team of about 12 people now. And we lean on each other. If I don't know how to do something, maybe somebody else does, and vice versa. And we're constantly looking for those special cogs that complement, you know, our own weaknesses, our strengths and our weaknesses. We're constantly trying to say, where are we weak and how can we find the skill set that we need to complement that? Like, just like building out a football team. If you have a team of all quarterbacks, that's going to be a really crappy football team.
Right.
You have to have all the different pieces.
And how do you hire? Do you design the role? You say, okay, I need somebody that is good in this area. You go out looking for them, or do you know somebody who's just amazing, talented, you know, has the right attitude, and kind of teach them the new skills that they need?
It can be a combo of both. You know, sometimes someone just comes across your path and you just recognize them as a kind of person that gets stuff done, and you say, we got to make a role for this person. They're just too valuable to let them walk out of our lives. Other times you need something very specifically done, and you have to go possibly use a recruiter or put up a job description and really headhunt for that exact piece that you're missing. You know, in a startup, you're just so desperate for talent. Sometimes, you know, you kind of have to basically take a shotgun approach and constantly be on the search for good talent, constantly be listing job descriptions. Like I say, we're always hiring, right?
Yep.
I may not have a need for you today, but we're growing so fast, I might have a need for you tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're the right person, there's always room for someone. And I think that's an important thing. Like in any terms of skills here, I've got a couple of young kids as well. And I'm always telling them, you'll always have a job so long as you've got that get it done attitude, being able to move stuff forward.
I'll say this. If you're the kind of person that never says, I can't do that, if you're the kind of person that says, I will do what it takes to figure out how to get that solved, you will always have a job, and chances are that job's going to pay really well, because 9 out of 10 people say, well, I don't know how to do that, or I can't do that.
And they brush it.
And maybe they're good at something else. Maybe they're a cog that'll fit in another part of the machine. But a person that says, I will figure out how to get that done will be the universal cog that can go anywhere in the company.
Awesome. So when we look at your history in turn, you started Run Gum 2014, and now that growth has just been amazing, which is incredible. What was the turning point? So the turning point when you hired that one person, or something happened and you just went, oh my God, now we're just unstoppable.
Well, when I had the concept, I originally took it to my coach and business partner, Sam, who I had mentioned earlier. But like I said, I was ranked number 2 in the world. I was spending probably 6 to 8 months a year on the road. He was traveling with me a lot. He had his own family he was raising, and we recognized pretty quickly that we would need help. And so I would say we hired employee number 1, who is a founder. His name's Nathan Woods, and he was originally called our chief of stuff. We had so much stuff that had to get done that we hired Nathan to do all the stuff.
COS, chief of stuff.
He's now our COO, a phenomenal COO. When we hired him, if I look back on the history of our business, the day we hired him is the day we decided that we wanted to be great. Yeah. If it had just been Sam and I, who knows what would have happened. If we had hired another person who wasn't the kind of person that could be a chief of stuff, I don't know where it would have gone. But because we hired Nathan, if one day we sell for, many millions of dollars, I will publicly say that was the moment that this all became possible.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm sure Shane will have an amazing badge on him as well from that statement. Which
should be able to punch his ticket wherever he wants to go if he's not super rich and wants to just go fishing all day.
Hang it out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So did you bootstrap, Nick? Did you use that money from your sponsors?
It was self-funded. Yeah. So originally we launched, my coach and I both wrote checks, founders seed round, basically. Yeah. That got us pretty far. That actually got us about through the first 3 years of business. Smart cash flow, a small line of credit from the bank, and that founders fund got us through our first 3 years. But then the POs started rolling in from the big companies, and to be able to fund those POs, to be able to cover the lag, because of course they pay net 90, we really needed to raise money. And so we raised $800,000 on a convertible note last year. And then this year I just closed our seed round with another $1 million in our first priced round.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Talk about learning how to swim. I had never raised money before, and now in the last 8-9 months I've raised $1.8 million. So
that's really cool.
So that's a real feather in my cap, and it makes me feel so powerful. Not in an ego way, but in a I can control my own destiny. I can have some more control over the fate of this company, knowing that as we continue to grow, as we continue to have more capital needs, I have that skill set now.
That's so cool, man. Can I ask you, Nick, this podcast is going out to people, entrepreneurs and business owners and people who are wanting to get started. And so I can feel somebody in their car right now. They're in traffic. They're listening to this podcast and they're saying to themselves, yeah, that's okay for Nick Symmonds, right? He's number 2 sprint champion in the world. He can raise money because of who he is. Can you tell me, can anybody do that? Somebody's got an idea. Yes. They've pushed it through. Yeah. Tell me how they could do it.
So the people, I go on these podcasts a lot or talk to people a lot. And they say, what's the number one thing you would tell an aspiring entrepreneur? And I say, learn finance, learn how money works, learn what factored lending is, learn what a line of credit is, learn how to utilize a corporate credit card, learn how to raise money. If you can't tell me what a convertible note is, if you can't tell me the difference between, a seed round and a series A, you're going to have to learn that at some point, right? Yeah. You need to understand cash flow. If you don't understand finance, it's like trying to build a house without understanding the plumbing. You can't do it, right? Yeah. You have to understand how money works, how you're going to access capital, how you're going to, move money around to make the business work. So I had zero understanding of this when I started. Fortunately, my business partner understood it. But even so, as we were scaling the business, we still had to learn a lot along the way. But if you don't want to learn it now, you are going to have to learn it on the job. But you as a founder, you as a C-level executive, you will have to understand finance to have a successful business.
How do you learn it, Nick? Do you go to a book? Do you go to a person? Do you reach out to someone? How do you learn it?
The wonderful thing about the internet, it has decentralized knowledge 100%. Investopedia is a phenomenal resource initially to learn, a lot of these terms. YouTube is a phenomenal way to learn just about anything. And once you have a basic understanding and can carry on a conversation, then you go and call your experts. So we have some really great advisors, and I'm not afraid to reach out to them and call them at midnight with a question. And they're more often than not, other entrepreneurs are very willing to pass on knowledge. So once I had a basic understanding of a convertible note, then I called up an advisor and I said, okay, I want you and me to walk down how this convertible note works. what are the terms I should be looking for? You know, I want you to play the devil's advocate and beat me up on a, you know, practice negotiation of raising money on a convertible note. You know, I wasn't afraid to really get my feet dirty a little bit and to learn by doing. And then that once I actually went out and talked to an investor, I mean, I sat down with a billionaire and asked him for $1 million, and I felt completely competent, completely able to have that conversation because I'd rehearsed it so many times. So initially start with the internet, then rely on advisors, and then go out and learn by doing.
I love that, because if you go straight to the expert and you're a completely novice, they don't have time for you.
They don't have time for that.
They don't have time.
If they can see that you're 90% of the way there, it's kind of exciting for them to fill in that last 10% or to test your knowledge and see, I think you have this understood, but let me just double check and maybe point out some weaknesses. That is something I love doing with young entrepreneurs. But if an entrepreneur comes up to me and says, I don't know anything about raising money, can you teach me how to do it? I'm like,
no.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, you got some work to do. Yeah, you have some serious work to do.
So it's like, you know, self-direction for the 90%, experts tutelage for the 10%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that
and more often than not, those experts are going to bend over backwards to help you. I've found.
Do you find that that's come from the track as well? I mean, I'm just fascinated by this transition from Olympic athlete, world champion. You know, I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, 90% of what you had to do out there came from you, and your experts added that 10% to get you, that lesson.
It's a really good analogy. I mean, when you're a professional runner, this isn't a big team where you can rely on your teammates to, you know, lift you up when you have a bad day. When you're out on that track, it's you. I mean, it's you, and whatever happens, it rests on your shoulders 90%, right? Because you still have that team behind you that maybe counts for 10%. And that, that they call it the loneliness of the long distance runner. I think it does work well in business. I do have a team I can rely on, to help me out. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with me as the co-founder and the CEO. And I like that responsibility. I've always responded well to that pressure. There was something you mentioned that kind of made me think, can't remember exactly what it was. What was it? What was the initial question?
90-10, like getting it, from coming from internally and getting the experts to top up the 10.
Yeah. Something will trigger in my
We'll come back to it. What does an average day look like for you now, Nick?
It's good. One of the things about being a pro runner is I was on the road a lot, like I said, 6 to 8 months out of the year. So when I took over as CEO of the company, it was with the aspiration of spending a lot more time at home. And I do get to do that. I would say I travel maybe 1 week a month for kind of business and or pleasure. But the rest of the time I'm at home, and I really like a structured day. So I'm up at 5 a.m. every single day without fail, Monday through Sunday. And I'm either, on the weekends going out to play, hunting, fishing, camping, or Monday through Friday, I'll go work out. I really like to work out. I think it's a great way to stimulate the brain and get things going. And then I'm in the office from about 9 to 5. And then lately, one of my longtime goals was to get my private pilot's license. So from about 5 to 6, I either go fly or I study flying, and I'm about just a couple weeks away from taking my check ride and having that accomplishment. Wow,
fantastic, mate! That in itself is a huge goal. Are you a constant goal setter? Do you constantly say?
Yeah, like to a fault, probably. I think it can be good. I think it's a really purposeful and satisfying way to live a life. Constantly setting goals. But it can also be a bit demoralizing if you're not hitting your goals. So one of the things we talk a lot about Run Gum is one, to have a goal, not a wish. There's a famous saying, a desire without a plan is just a wish. It's not a goal. So we talk about setting realistic goals with very solid metrics, so you can have a very black and white goal. Did you do this or didn't you? Timelines, and then of course building short-term and intermediate goals to get there. So I would say I'm the kind of guy that likes to set audacious goals. If you haven't noticed by some of the audacious goals I've set, I like to set really big, difficult goals. And some of them, I'll be totally honest, I don't know if I'm going to hit, but I get really excited about them, and that allows me to hit the short-term and intermediate goals. So a really audacious goal I had was to win an Olympic gold medal. I never did that, but I sure had a lot of fun, a lot of success hitting my smaller and intermediate goals along the way. And I look back on my career with a twinge of regret or frustration that I never got that Olympic gold medal, but overwhelmingly a lot of pride and happiness that I was able to achieve 9 out of 10 goals that I set along the way.
Pushed it hard on the way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Super cool. And how do you keep yourself on track from a goal setting point of view, from a daily routine point of view? Do you have an app that you use? Are you a checklist kind of guy? Like, what's your productivity tool?
Right here.
Pen and paper.
Pen and paper. And I know there's a lot of cool apps out there. I know that the computers were created for a reason. I'm still a 35-year-old guy that grew up with a pen and paper, and that's how I get everything done. My team hates it because they're like, what if there's a flood or something burns down? I'm like, then it's all up here. I got redundancy. But for the most part, I just love, I keep my calendar on pen and paper. I keep my checklist on pen and paper. I keep all my goals on Post-it notes posted around me. If it's not on paper, it doesn't exist.
Nice.
And then to everyone's frustration, I'm sure, I have everything batched through my email. I don't use Slack. I don't use social media for anything but engaging with fans. Everything that needs to get done has to go through email, or I probably won't see it.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. And
I know some people hate that, but I prefer to just have one-stop shop for all my work tasks.
It makes sense. If you lost everything, like, talking about the flood coming through and, it's all, if you lost everything, you lost your manufacturer, you lost your distributed channel, that kind of stuff, would you be able to get it back again?
Yeah, and I'd probably be able to do it in a quarter of the time, right?
Yeah,
because
sure.
the important thing is the knowledge and experience that I carry with me. So, if this company went under tomorrow, say there was a huge recession and we were poorly capitalized or didn't manage our cash right, I would literally just go start another business, and I'd probably be able to get right back where I am in a quarter of the time. And I think that's really, you talk about empowering, or you talk about that feeling of just controlling your own destiny. I get worried for some people out there that, that are at the mercy of an employer. And I understand that I have some people here that are at the mercy of me and this company as the employer. But there's something about being an entrepreneur, something about owning your own business. If I want to get paid next month, then I know what I need to do. And I guess technically the board could fire me, but for the most part, I feel like I control my own destiny every day.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not totally risk-free, but it just feels like I manage that risk myself rather than somebody else managing the risk.
My brother was made redundant a couple of times in his career, and I always thought to myself, business ownership, entrepreneurship, we own a software company, business ownership is so much less risk, because if something's in trouble, at least you can fix it, right?
At least I can fix it, or try to fix it, right?
That's it, or knock the doors that you need to knock to get the result that you need to get. That's really cool. Nick, I'm so grateful for your time, man, and I really love it. Looking at your bookshelf behind you, you've got a whole bunch of media there. I saw Gary Vee's book up there.
Ask Gary Vee. I don't get the luxury of so when I was a pro athlete, I read everything because I had nothing but free time all day. Now I don't get to read as much, but a lot of people in the office, they love to read entrepreneurial stuff. They love to read self-help stuff. So they pass some stuff on to me. I love Gary Vee. I think he's brilliant. I haven't had a chance to read these ones. The new 1 Minute Manager, I've told, is really good.
Nice.
If I do get a chance to read, you know what? All I read is pilot stuff right now. No. Getting your private pilot's license is a lot of work, and I am seriously putting in, at least an hour or two every single day in studying right now.
How hard is it? Like, is it the hardest thing you've ever done?
No, I've done hard. I mean, getting my degree in biochemistry from college is probably the hardest thing I've ever done, and that trumps even making the Olympic team. Making an Olympic team is fun, and if you're having fun, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Getting your degree in biochemistry sucked. That was hard work. This is fun because I enjoy it. I love flying. I'm fascinated by what we've built in aviation. So when I'm studying, I'm just kind of like, holy cow, this is so cool. How did we build this in just 100 years or less, right? It is a little bit tedious in the sense that there's a couple things that are kind of, I can tell, are antiquated about the way that we teach our pilots today. Think about technology and how it's revolutionized everything. Well, that includes the cockpit. And unfortunately, the way, at least in America, that we test our pilots, it's a lot of antiquated technology. So in some ways, I feel like they're making me learn cursive, and I'm like, I'm never going to use this. But there are some really, incredible pilots that have come before me that had to learn this. So it's sort of tradition that I would go, follow in those footsteps and learn the way they used to do it in the old days.
I love what you said before. Somebody dumber than me has done this, so there's absolutely no reason.
I know pilots that are dumber than me. I should be able to figure this out.
I can get through this if they can. Man, again, I'm so thankful for your time. Can I just bounce a 60-second challenge off you, Nick, and then I've got one question after that. 60-second challenge. You catch up with a friend of yours who's been an employee for a long time. and they've noticed what you've done. They've been a big fan. They're chewing some gum while they're talking to you. They're saying to you, Nick, I've got this great idea. I've been able to put it together. What advice would you give to that person? I know you said about learn finance before, but here's somebody who's kind of trying to get that step into entrepreneurialism and owning their own business. What advice would you give to that person in 60 seconds? Find
somebody who's done it before. And if you can't find that person, find somebody who aspires to be in the weeds with you, right? Because we're a founding team of 3. And I bet you at any given time over the last 5 years, if you were to walk into this office, one of the 3 would be having a really tough day. But the other 2 always lifted that one up, or always kind of shouldered the work if we could. There were curveballs that were thrown our way that maybe Nathan and Sam were like, I don't know how to get out of this. I'm like, I think I can figure this one out. And there were curveballs that were thrown away where I'm like, we are all going bankrupt. We'll never figure our way out. But one of them figured it out. So I really believe in having a founding team with skin in the game and passion for what you're doing. I think that for most startups is probably what's going to mitigate your risk the most.
Cool. And that can come in terms of a co-founder, or it can come in terms of a paid mentorship, or,
a lot of ways to do it.
Very cool. Thank you, man. And just last one, Nick. And again, thank you so much for your time. You're heading towards your pilot license. You've got Run Gum in every major retailer all around the world. What are the big goals that you're putting out there right now that you're just going, I don't know if I'm going to get there, but this is how we're going to get there?
That's a really good question. I think just doubling down on what I've already done. So I want to get my commercial pilot's license. Why? I have no idea. I'll probably never make any money doing it, but I want to continue pushing that goal.
It's for that fruit plane full of Run Gum that you want to get out.
Yeah, exactly. With Run Gum, I don't think we're even close to content. We want more shelf space, more doors, bigger brand visibility. With my fiance, I'm getting married next year. So, that's a huge goal of mine, is just to be the best husband I can be. Awesome. Fitness wise, I'm always setting goals. So it's kind of funny. I think as we get later on in life, as a 20-year-old, I was scatterbrained. I had 100 different interests and I didn't know where I wanted to go for work. I didn't know where I wanted to go for my hobbies. Now I'm like, I've got like 4 or 5 things and I really don't want anything else in my life. I just want to continue to double down on those things that I know I love, I know I'm passionate about, and just be the best husband, the best fisherman, the best businessman, the best at the things that I know I'm really passionate about.
Nick Symmonds, the best in the world at being...
I don't know about that, but at least I'm working on it.
You are the best in the world at being Nick Symmonds, brother. Mate, thank you so much for your time, Nick. I am super excited to see the journey with Run Gum. I look forward to hearing about the horizon, what it looks like from way up there in the pilot seat. And again, mate, thank you so much for your insight, your inspiration, and all the best of success. Can't wait to get you back on the show in another year and hear about some of those other doors you've knocked. Again, thank you so much for your time, man.
Thank you.
You're a champ.